Good morning, good morning. All right, guys, we are going live like we have done the last several. Oh, where'd my girl go? Hold on, I'm getting my audacious founder. Here she actually texted me this morning, and we were talking about feeling a little stuck. So I know there she is. There's my girl.
Hello.
Hi, my friend. How are you? Look, we got
Very
a couple.
good. Very good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We got a couple other folks joining us right off the bat too. So I'm just excited to jump into this because yes, like I've been there too. So I would love if you would do the honors, my friend. Just tell everybody what you texted me this morning.
It was probably like what, 6 a.m. your time, you poor thing.
No, I know most of the time I'm up. So
I
no,
thought
when
so.
honestly it was one of those like when you were texting me, it was like, is she okay? Is like
No, I mean, I was okay, but it was just like, okay. So last night I don't know what I was doing. I was either on Instagram or just watching TV or something. And I immediately had, and I'm sure you guys can relate because you're watching, you're doing something. And all of a sudden you have this feeling where you're just like, that is me. That should be me. That's where I'm supposed to be. Right. And then you're like, "Oh, well, okay, why am I not there?" And then you're like, well, I don't have time. And you start going through the list of excuses in your mind. Oh, I don't have time. And then you're like coaching yourself and you're like, well, not having time is just an
yeah.
excuse. So stop making excuses. And then, hi, Laura, welcome. Um, and and then finally my this is like this whole conversation in my mind. And then finally I was like, you know what? Okay, screw it. I'm just gonna wake up at 4 in the morning and get this shit done. And
Yes.
so I changed my calendar to wake up. I call them my millionaire mornings, and I changed my calendar so that I would set my alarm because now I can't the alarm. I have like a steel trap brain where like the alarms don't penetrate. And so I have to set my alarm like an hour before I want to get up. And so I got my ass up at 4. I read a little bit. I sat at the computer, but I procrastinated and I didn't really get that much done. Then I took my daughter to school and I came back and I was like, I'm grouchy and I want to go to sleep. So,
Yeah. So you went through this whole like you had this trigger moment where you then totally just right went into attack mode. Like you're attacking yourself. You're
yeah,
like you're not doing enough. You're full of excuses. You have time. Why aren't you getting off your butt? Like, right? Like, so
yeah,
you go into this full attack
yeah,
mode. So
yeah,
then the other, right? It's like the devil and the angel. Then the other part of you is like, be pleased, we're not gonna attack, we're gonna do something,
yeah,
right? Like there's that person in
yeah.
us. And so you come up with this beautiful plan of attack to help get yourself unstuck and out of the no more excuses. You wake up early and then it doesn't go as planned.
I mean, okay, I'm still proud of myself that I woke up at that time when I said I was going to wake up. And I
Oh,
did get the thing done, at least one of the things done that I wanted to get done. So I think ultimately it was a success. Can I keep doing it? To be determined. But yeah, it's just that moment where you're just like, I don't even know. What was that moment? It was like that moment that I texted you and I was just like, I'm not happy. This doesn't feel good. Like
this doesn't feel
4
good.
a.m., not fixing it.
Yeah, it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Literally, when you texted me, the first thing that came to mind too was like, oh girl, I've been there.
Yeah,
And
you told
so
me you had a story.
uh-huh. So my situation that was almost exactly like that. It happened about 30 days after I left my corporate job. So
Okay.
what we're talking April, Mayish. And like it was the first time that I had an actual to-do list of things that were going to be associated with my new business that I was going to be launching. And so I finally felt some clarity. I felt so good about it. And I sat down and it was scheduled and everything. And I'm not kidding you. For 3 days straight, I looked at a blank computer screen because for 3 days straight, I was up in my head and I was
Yeah.
beating myself up. and it was like the most awful things, right? Like it was like, you should quit now. Who do you think you are? Why would you like, why do you think this will make a difference? I mean, just the, and for me, absolutely, like I would describe it as spiritual warfare more than anything.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until like, okay, so after 3 days of staring at a black screen, like on the fourth day, I was like, screw this, done with this. Like, I'm going to shake up the system. I'm going to wake
Mhm.
up at even earlier. I'm going to wake up even earlier than I normally do. And then I'm going to sit down. And I sat down and the same thing started to happen. And I was like, not again. And I keep, normally it was like 5 books at the time right next to my desktop. And one of them was Gabrielle Bernstein's The Universe Has Your Back. And I was in such a desperate, like, I just need something to shake it up. And so I flip it open really randomly to a page, and it's the first page of chapter 11, which says, when you think you've surrendered, surrender more. And
Oh,
I
I
got
got chills.
so angry. I got so
Mhm.
angry. And the fact that I got so angry about like being asked to surrender even more, that's exactly how I knew that I was trying to force. I was trying to
Huh.
force things. Like I was in a season saying where I was just showing up and like letting my intuition, letting my faith guide me.
Yeah.
But really, what I had just done is I had spent 3 days trying to force it, trying
Huh.
to look for that epiphany, trying to like desperate energy, controlling energy. And
Yeah.
what I was doing unknowingly was that I was actually like blocking all chances of natural intuition, blocking all chances of like divine intervention, because I was gripping so tightly
Yeah.
to what I wanted. And it really wasn't until I kept reading a little bit further in that chapter where it was like, yeah, you can't create out of desperate energy. Like you can't do it. That's when it unlocked for me, and it was like, okay. And then I started coming out of it.
In that moment, okay, couple
Yeah.
questions. What were you trying to write? What were you trying to do on that blank screen?
Huge things, huge things. They were going to be monumental pillars in my
Yeah.
business. I was looking at building like what's the business ecosystem that I'm going to be building and that I'm going to be double downing, like that I'm going to put double down on
Yeah.
all of my efforts, all of my time, all of my money. And and so I think that for me again, and like super, spiritual faithful stuff here, but it was just the what I was going to be building, I knew was going to be it was going to be so monumental and propelling my next, honestly, 6 months.
Mhm.
And that's why there was so much struggle on the front end of it. And so it was, I had to get to the other side of it.
But so okay, so what happened after you saw that quote? You got angry, and then what happened?
I got angry, which meant I knew I was supposed to keep
Yeah.
reading. So I kept
Yeah.
reading. And it was
Okay.
like with every additional sentence that I kept reading out of the book, it kept unlocking
Huh.
things for me. It literally felt like shackles. And this is one of those, if it be super honest. So I have recorded a podcast about this. I have not released it yet because it's like such a vulnerable, raw moment that I just know
Whoa.
that when I'm supposed to release it, I'll release it. I don't know. Maybe, maybe you need to hear it too. I
I
don't
want
know.
to hear it.
I'm sure you do want to
I
hear
mean,
it.
you know that I'm probably going to be like, this is amazing. Post it now.
This is a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did a whole podcast episode on it. So yeah, so I kept reading, and it was like shackles that just kept breaking off of.
Mm.
Instead of like those limiting beliefs that we all have, right? Instead of the you should just quit while you're ahead, it was like, no, you're here for a reason. It was the like, if you like, who would, like, who are you really going to impact with these messages? And
Yeah.
it was like, instead it was like, no, these messages were meant for you to be shared through you.
Mm.
Like, so it was just like the opposite of like, just again, the shackles that started breaking. But I had to get to a point where I really was willing to surrender, even more than I thought I already had. And you and I have talked about that concept of surrendering. And I think that that's where I actually went back and I listened to our podcast episode that'll drop tomorrow, you guys. So Melissa and I, we've got one dropping tomorrow together. And it reminded me, I was like, I wonder if she's in a season where whatever you're trying to accomplish, you're holding so tight. And that's one of the reasons why it's not happening as effortlessly as maybe it could, would, should. Yes, no? What do you think?
Um, I don't know.
Mm.
I don't
Mm.
know. I so what was coming up for me, I wrote down a question for you, so don't let me forget to come back to it.
Okay.
Um, but what was coming up for me is like we never know where we are on the scale of surrendering. It's
Mm.
like we think that we've surrendered or that we've opened ourselves up as much as we possibly can, and then boom, something happens and we're like, "Oh, just dropped another 3 levels." Like I didn't realize there was still more growth or still more self-awareness or still more whatever it is, insight maybe, to have or to find or to access. And so when you ask me like maybe I'm still holding on tight to things, it's possible. Maybe I am still holding on tight to things. I know that I have graduated, and I don't know if it's an up or down. I keep
I
saying
know.
down, but
Yeah, I think it can be both. I think it
I've
can be both.
I've graduated to a more open and accessible and less holding tight place than I
Mm.
was,
Good.
let's say, maybe April, May, June, July,
Yeah.
August, September. So like, yeah, this time last year I was different, and I can blatantly feel that from what, the experience that we talked about in your
Yeah.
podcast. Um, but is there another level? Is there another couple levels? Probably.
There's
Probably.
there's there's so many, and I think that this goes back to like I loved in your text you were like it felt like my higher self was like trying to just like come on, let me in, baby, like
Yeah.
let's go, like we're ready for our next
Yeah.
level. And so I'm just curious, like what does, and so for anybody listening, like when your higher self starts talking to
Yeah.
you or tapping into you, so I'm curious, anybody listening, like if you want to type that into the comments, like what does
Oh,
that look like, what does that feel
that's
like how does that actually happen? And then Melissa, oh wait, I know you said you have a question for me, but that's my
yeah.
question to you.
Yeah. And I'm really curious to see if anybody else responds to that.
Okay.
I think that's such a great question. Like, how do you identify when it's your higher self talking to you?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or maybe when it's your ego talking to you, like how can you differentiate? Um, and also how do you know when it's like you're you're trying to coach yourself, you're trying to help yourself move to the next stage or next awareness versus when you're like kind of beating yourself up, like where is that line between the tough love and the beating yourself up?
Yeah.
But this is a really good question. So let's see if anybody, my question for you, so we
Oh,
we can come back to this. What do you
okay.
think? Okay, my question for you was, you said before that it was like kind of like spiritual warfare, that you kept having this voice that was like coming in and being like, I should have written down what you said, but like, you can't do this, or this
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to work, or you're
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was saying. I'm curious, like, whose voice was that, if you had to
Mm-hmm.
pinpoint that? Because again, that question of, is it the higher self? I don't think so in that case. Is it
Mm-hmm.
the ego? Is it somebody from your environment? Like maybe it's a relative. Maybe it's, like, whose voice is that? Because it, we know you can do it. You know you can do it. That's why you took the leap in the first
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. I mean, definitely like I'll say like the enemies, but like for the sake of like trying to explain what that actually looks like, sounds like, I don't know, maybe it's right, like we all have that the little voice in our head, and I think maybe
Yeah.
it does sound different at all different scenarios and times and situations. I think in that moment for me, great question, man, you're always so full of good questions. Maybe it does, like it sounds like my voice, but in like tone matters, and instead it's
Mm,
like it's not a loving, gracious tone, but more of like a harsh disciplinary,
mm,
um, like just evil, like awful, mean, ill intent, like
yeah.
not like, so maybe it's like a tone thing. So, and I think sometimes, and I can say it because I think that the opposite happens too. So kind of like going back to like what does your higher self sound like? Because if you can be beating yourself up, and what does that sound like? So then what does the higher self sound like?
Yeah.
I think to some degree it's like me talking in my head a little
Yeah.
bit, but there's a different tone, and there's a different knowing that comes with
Mm-hmm.
it, like when it's my higher self or when it's my intuition that I'm tapping into. That sounds much more like love, like grace, like kindness, and the way that that moves through my body is totally different than when I was feeling stuck, where it was really just for me, it was sitting in my
Yeah.
head. And I would say most of the time, if, and like again, super personal, like for me, I'd say most of the time, if I get stuck, it's in my
Yeah.
head. Like it's not my heart, not my soul, not my feet, like not in any of the. And I think you do have to pay attention to that, because I think that our bodies do they provide some insight as to where like our intuition is trying to tap into us, or where like our, you know, spiritually or universe like is trying to tap into us. But yeah, that's what it sounds like on both sides for me. Okay, but what does it sound like for you? good good side, if like you're attacking yourself, what does it actually sound like? And then higher self trying to motivate and encourage you forward.
I think my higher self is like the the tough love, like
Mm-hmm.
not kind of I what everything you just said totally registered. And it's like this kind of feeling that you get when you get the message. But like last night was just, and I get these frequently where it's just like what are you doing? Like you're wasting time. Like you know what you need to do it. Like just stop not doing it and just do it. Like just keep pushing. And actually, as you were talking too, I was thinking that I feel like that's how I am with my daughter. And so I don't know what exactly that means or doesn't mean, but like that's sort of, I talk to myself, I think, the way I talk to my daughter, where it's just like, you know what to do. You know what? I got it. You have everything you need to do the thing, to go, to that distance, to get to reach that potential that exists for you.
Mm-hmm.
You just are choosing not to.
So
It's a choice,
you're hearing like a motherly, like
but tough.
loving,
Yeah.
yeah, but like tough, because your
Yeah.
best interest is still at stake here. But then
Mm-hmm.
like there's that, again, I don't even know if you would call it
Yeah,
frustration, or if it's
a
just
little
like a
bit.
hey, you know better. You know what the
Yeah.
assignment is, you know what the mission is. Why aren't you doing
Uh,
it?
and I tell my daughter that I'm like, do you know what the right thing is in this, what the right choice is in this circumstance, whatever it
Mm-hmm.
might be? Do the
Mm-hmm.
right thing. And then you're not going to get in trouble, or you're not going to get yelled at for not doing your homework, or whatever the heck it is. Right. And exactly the same for me. Like, do the right thing, wake up earlier, get the thing done, make the time, send the email to that person, right? Schedule that call.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So then if you can, I mean, at least recognizing that you're feeling stuck,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's the, all jokes aside, that's actually like the first step.
Yeah.
Recognizing that you're feeling stuck. And then I think where both of us maybe are sitting at, which I love this, because the whole reason we're doing this is like thought-provoking conversation. So I
Mm-hmm.
just so appreciate you. It's like the way that we're hearing it, when there's like positive messages coming through, or when there's negative messages coming through, and actually being able to recognize them for what they are. And maybe then like step three almost is like, okay, now that you've compartmentalized what is true, or maybe like what is the intent of the message coming through,
Mm-hmm.
like if the intent is like motherly because I care about you,
Yeah.
you have all the tools, compartmentalizing those messages like as truth versus limiting belief. And then right, and then like you said, then you get to make a different choice. You get to make a choice about which of all the voices in our heads, like you get to make the choice about what you're going to lean into as
Mm-hmm.
truth, and what you're going to then let guide your steps and your actions forward.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. Like last night, I could have sat there and I could have felt frustrated and sorry for myself,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and instead I created a little action plan for myself. And
Yeah.
today was the first day of that new adjustment that I'm trying to make. And it didn't feel the most comfortable, but that's okay. I got some new creamer for my coffee today. So it's gonna, just little by little, we're gonna get there. And there's two things that you made me think
Yeah.
of is, um, I think I've gotten really good at blocking a lot of the negative talk and or just stopping it. Like as soon as maybe that first egoic sentence is
Mm-hmm.
uttered in my mind, I'm just like, nope,
Nope.
not choosing to listen to that, and I think that's just taken. I think what's caused that is just time reading these Gabby Bernstein
Yes.
books, these,
Yes.
all of these books, just Joe Dispenza,
Yep.
any books that have to do with mindset and like neuroscience, like all of that kind of stuff, just time and practice. And then I think what that leads to, and a good place to be, just like a motherly figure, is becoming your biggest fan. Like anytime maybe you have that mental utterance of like something negative, you stop and you replace it with, nah, bitch, I'm killing it. Or like, no, but I did something really good yesterday. Or, okay, fine. I didn't feel as inspired this morning as I would have liked to have
Yeah.
felt, but I still did what I committed to do, which was waking up at 4 a.m. and sitting at the computer to do the thing.
You did it.
Right? So like being your biggest fan, just like your parent would, hopefully,
Ooh, I love that
or
connection there.
your higher self
Yes.
would, right?
Or yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it.
The
Anyone? Yeah. Go ahead.
the one other thing too, because when you were talking about, let me remember. Oh, you mentioned this is like when you were sitting at that computer and you just like couldn't type or you couldn't write down the thing, and then you started thinking about how this was going to impact even just one other person. There's a quote that I heard from Rory Vaden, and I'm not going to say the quote correctly, but he said something like, when you are feeling stuck, it's because you're focused on yourself. And as soon
Mm,
as you focus on the impact or the person that your message is for,
then
then
you.
it's going to flow.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a lot of truth to that because I think, right, like if you're getting stuck most of the time, like people will describe feeling stuck as like feeling like they're in a spiral down because it does.
Mhm.
It feels like there is, even though stuck would be something that you're like you're stationary, stuck for most folks actually feels like you're going down. So
Mhm.
there's movement. And so it's like having
Interesting.
what is going to be like, what's going to be like that trigger, or what's going to be that opposite impact that can actually like shoot you back up
Mhm.
that spiral that you feel like you've been going down, just to even break like ground
Yeah.
level to where you then start to feel like there's clarity or like there's light again.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Just momentum.
Momentum.
It's
Yeah.
momentum up or momentum down.
Yeah. It is. Yeah. Anybody else who's listening, or if you guys are catching the replay with us, we're just talking all things getting stuck and what does it sound like? What does it feel like? And then kind of how do you get on the other side of it? Just recognizing the different pieces, the different voices, the different sounds. I think that I think a lot of us tend to have an idea around like what makes us feel stuck, whether it's fear, outside circumstances, inside circumstances, like so. And I think that we could absolutely unpack that another day too if you guys are interested. But more so it's like, hey, we all feel stuck in something or in different ways or at different times. And how do you, I think, push through that feeling and counteract it so that you can create some positive momentum for yourself
Yeah.
is probably like where I would kind of try and land that plane. What do you think?
Yeah. And so like what would you say is like maybe one of your go-to things? I mean, you already mentioned reading, right? Like Gabby
Yeah.
Bernstein was something that helped you propel yourself, create that upward momentum out
Yeah.
of that stuckness. But like, is there anything else that you do?
We've talked about it, and I'll keep talking about it, is just like being still. So a lot of
Oh,
times, like being still for me, that there is an element of praying that's involved with that. Just like I think that there's so much power in just learning how to be still, because in that moment you can actually like hear your intuition.
mhm.
In that moment, you could do exactly what we just talked about, where you can hear and you can decipher and you can compartmentalize. Okay, this is negative talk. Okay, hey, how do I replace it so I can be my biggest fan? Okay, how like you can actually start sifting through that if you just take a hot second to be able to actually recognize all the things. But most of us are just going so fast, so busy, consuming more content than we even know what to do with, that we almost get like numb as to
Uh-huh.
which voice is talking to us and what are we trying to do and
Yeah.
where are we trying to
Yeah.
go. So for me it's being still. What would you say?
Um, so you mentioned the content, so now I'm like, oh crap, that's what I do. I add more content. Um, but it's not about more content.
It's
It's
not.
about the specific kind of content.
Yeah.
So I notice when I'm feeling like just like bleh,
Uh-huh.
when I'm feeling like frustrated or like all the work I'm putting in is not getting me anywhere and I'm just feeling lousy, if I listen to a YouTube video that is somehow inspirational, if I listen to a podcast that is maybe funny or inspirational or about something that gives me some kind of like hope for the
Yeah.
future or for my business or for my money, something, it kind of it snaps me out of it. It gets my mind thinking about possibilities again instead of what's not working.
It's the thing that creates that opposite momentum. It's that
Yeah.
works for you as your trigger
Ooh.
to create the opposite momentum to start going back up to the light again.
Oh, yeah. Whoa.
We're so good. I love when we get together.
We literally just created a diagram.
We did up, down, triggers. So good.
Spirals up and down and arrows going up and down. And it's just about momentum. It's true. You got to stop the negative momentum
Yeah.
and just rework
And
it. Yeah.
rework it. And then, and two, right? And then other stuff that you and I've talked about, it's just so fundamental, but it's like then actually taking a moment to redefine what does success look like for
Yeah.
you. And if
Yeah.
success maybe isn't accomplishing the whole damn goal all in and all from 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., maybe it is just like you did a piece
Yeah.
of the goal
Yeah.
before 10 a.m. and that actually is success.
Yeah.
So I think that plays into it too.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I said I was going to wake up at 4. I woke that ass up at 4. And I've actually been trying to get myself to wake up earlier for like months and it hasn't worked. And so whatever
There you
clicked
are.
last night, yeah. So
You can do it. I love
mhm.
4 a.m. It's one of my favorite
What
times.
time do you wake up?
Way too dang early.
Oh my God.
I'm normally up between 4 and 4:30. Like that's my jam.
Jesus. Why do we do this?
Okay, but then also like my butt is ideally, oh, it's a beautiful day. When my butt is in bed by 9, that's a good day.
I know. I know. I'm trying to at least get in there by 10. I
You
know.
see.
I
Yes,
know.
yes.
Oh,
All right, my friend. This was really, really good. Thank you guys for joining us today. See, a few of you really hung in there with us, which is a good sign for us. And if there's anything that you guys want to talk about, Melissa and I, we're committed. We want to keep doing these things, same time, same place, every single week. So if there's something you
love
want
it.
to unpack and join, like I said, the whole point of these is some thoughtful conversation, things that maybe just new perspectives, just to kind of get that brain going. Melissa, I forget how you said it, but like the creative
Mhm.
solutioning that starts going on. So I love that. So
I
thank you.
love the brainstorming. I love talking about this stuff.
It's so good. It's so good. All right, all. Have a great week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching.